To all who come to this happy podcast, welcome to Fresh Baked Presents, a happy place where each week we combine our imagination with our experience to discuss, challenge, and explore all things Disneyland. I am Ron Berner, and with me as always, Mr. Fresh Baked himself, the incredible, indelible David Erickson.
What's up, Fresh Baked?
And this is the Fresh Baked Presents podcast, of course, episode 34. Thank you for joining us, where today we explore New Orleans Square and pirates. We will reach into your mailbag, or to our mailbag, to answer your questions, and of course, 5 things Disneyland. You miss a show and you get rusty. That was marbles in the mouth.
You got through it. You got through it. It's all right.
I like it messy anyway. It just seems more
too.
real. On that note, David, how have you been? We did miss a week episode, and it always kind of discombobulates the whole clock in my brain kind of thing. So how were you, and how was your park experiences this week?
Running ragged as usual. I've been continuing my streak of going to the park like constantly these days. My park experiences in the parks have been pretty magical, I have to say. When I get home and I start talking about and thinking about Disney, it's not necessarily magical, but when I'm in the park, Disneyland is fantastic. I love it.
I was in the parks as well. We were in the parks on the Saturdays, because Saturdays is when we go, but since we hadn't been on the show, so it was fun to see the park. So 2 weeks ago was the first time I had been to the parks in a few weeks, and which is a lot for me, which is a very long stretch actually for me, but I had a lot going on. But I will say that I've said this so many times before, but it still continues to feel more and more. I know we're back, quote unquote, we're back. Yeah. But I still notice things on the last 2 experiences. Certainly, we're like, okay, this is definitely more than what it was a month ago. Like, there's things, there's activity, there's energy, and we'll get into so much of that. But one of the things, obviously, of course, the big transition from old New Orleans Square to new New Orleans Square, which is in part is still happening in the back, over the treehouse, pirates. That whole element of it. So jumping into New Orleans Square, my question for you, sir, because I have an actual definitive opinion of all of this, but what are your thoughts of what they did, the reconstruction of New Orleans Square and the sightlines and the trees and all of that?
Well, I mean, from a purely aesthetic point of view, I'm not a big fan of what they did, simply because I've mentioned this before. I had total fears of the kind of devastation that they might wreak on New Orleans Square. I personally loved the steps, the tiered, the 3-tiered, effect. We talked about that. I did a video about the things that I love about New Orleans Square years ago, 2-3 years ago, and that was a thing that I noted specifically was the layered effect of the land, which you don't get anywhere else. And so this isn't a thing where I'm watching Disney do something. I'm like, shaking my fist like an old man shakes his fist at a cloud. This is going back. I've long had an appreciation for that aspect of it. I noted it also in Galaxy's Edge when there's steps going from the perimeter of the land up into docking bay 7. You go up those steps, Ronto Roasters on your left, Savi's Workshop on your right. And I made note of that too. I'm like, I think it's brilliant. I love the fact that they did this. They didn't have to, but they did it. And so losing it kind of bums me out a little bit here at New Orleans Square. But having said that, I'm a weirdo, and I pay attention to things, or I have an obsession with things that maybe the average guest doesn't. So Liz was with me. I mentioned this in a construction video. Liz was with me about a week ago. And I said, hey, what do you think? What do you think of the new New Orleans Square? She's like, what are you talking about? I said, what do you mean, what am I talking about? I said, they took out that 3rd tier. Oh, you're right. She didn't even notice. So
that is it.
But she's also intimately aware of she loves New Orleans Square, but it's not in the front of everybody's mind. So it's not so bad. I mean, they kept a lot of the character. We didn't lose it all. It's not my favorite thing, but it's not so bad either. What did you think?
I gotta tell you, my visceral reaction was so much different than what I expected. And what I mean by that is, I agree with you on the steps. It's like the visual of that, especially from the Mark Twain. But it, like it, it's very sensical that they would remove steps. For one thing, the traffic of all the strollers and all the carts and stuff. So the steps visually is beautiful, but it's not very efficient actually. So it makes a lot of sense. But visually, especially from the Twain and like looking in that direction, it's spectacular, no doubt.
Yeah.
But my reaction that I was not, I didn't see coming in the slightest is when I was walking through there. And funny enough, as I wasn't walking through there, like looking and trying to look at New Orleans Square, I was just kind of walking through it. And I knew I was going to do that, but I was walking through it and I couldn't get over how much I loved one's key element. And the key element of the restaurant, of seeing the restaurant, like the visual, it connects more now. Before there was like a wall there, even though there wasn't a wall, it felt like there was some sort of a wall there where the restaurants were over there and you had to go around and you had to find a way to get there because there was some sense of a different area or some sense of protection, I guess, for lack of a better word. Now walking through there on the main path, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the restaurants are right there, and it's
a very clean sightline. Yeah,
it's a very clean sightline, and it was welcomed, and I didn't anticipate it in any way, shape, or form. I was like, that element is super cool. Having it all blocked off a little bit with the chain link, not the chain link fence, but the wrought iron kind of thing, blocking not by the restaurants but down lower, to keep kind of the sections sectioned off, I guess, if you will, was interesting. Obviously the coloring of the concrete is, that stuff you want to like aesthetically mesh together better, which it will when we get used to it. But anyway, my initial thought of it was I like the openness between the restaurant and the path now. The more of a connection. I like it. I don't know why.
Let me ask you this, because and I might just trigger, I may catch you off guard here a little bit, because this is something that I've been contemplating. Some of the why, the question of why they're doing this. I mean, obviously you want to keep things, you want to open up the paths a little bit, and like you said, create more space, create more visual sight lines, that kind of thing. But I felt like it was not coincidental that they timed this with Pirates of the Caribbean, which we might get into in a bit, and the question of whether or not they were going to be adding, Lightning Lane to Pirates. And I was not that I don't want to address that part of it, but I wanted to look at Pirates and think, how is the queue going to be configured now? And one of the realizations that I made is you might have seen me in the park. Many times I'll be standing there, and I'm just standing there staring. I'm staring at Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm staring at the queue, and I'm just like trying to imagine, trying to visualize the flow of the queue, because we have a certain expectation of what we're used to, the way that that extended queue goes out off into Cafe Orleans towards French Market. I don't know if you can do that anymore. I don't know if you can do that extended queue out there anymore, because they took all that. The wrought iron and the steps created definition. It created a confined area where you could. It was like a pen for queue guests. There's no pen anymore.
That is true. I will say, in my opinion, one of the worst things, the worst queues, I guess, that to ever happen in any Disney park. Well, I guess Disneyland, since it's the only one I've been to, is the Pirates queue. You can't even walk through there. No, well, exactly. When it gets extended, though, and then they rope it off, they keep extending the rope up into New Orleans Square. You can't even get by. It is chaos, and it goes back over the bridge. It was a disaster that needed to be fixed. But to your point, how they fix that, I don't know. But whatever it is, I have faith it's going to be better than that, because that was an atrocity. That was terrible.
Well, but I guess my fear is, are they going to go through all that process of opening up the space there only to rope it off again in order to put guests inside of it? Because where else are you going to put them?
Yeah, I don't know. There's the inside queue where there's the 2 lanes, and then there's the outside queue. So, more of an efficient way. Yeah, I guess it remains to be seen on how much, because there's still construction walls up. But when you get back to Tarzan's treehouse, like if they just keep it tight, wrap it around there, I don't know if
Around
they go
Tarzan,
that direction. Or
you know what?
yeah,
That's
I don't
another.
know.
I stared at the tree for a solid half hour last week. It can't be done.
It
As
can't.
soon as they built that bridge, that created a bottleneck in that section. Because before, when they used to run the queue in that direction, right, towards Indiana Jones back in the old days, but that was before they had a bridge, and that's before they had the stump and everything. So it was flat and wide open, and you could easily sort of run guests through there. But the bridge now creates a very narrow path that even if you take the tree out, there's still that path is still bisected by the bridge. So you can't run guests because it'll create a logjam. The guests coming down the bridge towards Adventureland won't be able to pass.
Well, in a switchback, but if it's single file like they did with the Matterhorn around the Matterhorn, like if they single file, what if they two lined it? Because there is two lines when you get inside of there. What if they do one of those? Because
But
you can't have it in the front that way because that's the way you enter it, right? So it has to
right.
either be two lined or pick a side. So you know what I'm saying? Like obviously they can't do a switchback in front of the big sign and the main entrance to it.
No.
So that means they have to pick a side. And if they
Well,
pick the
that's
same
the
side
thing,
that they
and you
pick,
do have to pick a side. You can't run queues in both directions, right? So,
unless you have two
but
lines, but that wouldn't make sense either because nobody else is. It's never been done. I don't
well,
think.
Matterhorn did, but they also had two tracks, so that makes sense. No,
Right.
you have to pick a side, and if you do pick a side, there's not enough room. There's not
Right.
enough room on that side of the attraction to fit what could be a longish queue. Sometimes it gets super long. The only place that could fit that many guests is on the new or the Haunted Mansion side, I
Right.
think.
Yeah. So then maybe they should have those. Well, it's interesting because, listen, there's only one place you can go because you don't want to go across, right? You have to stay high and tight.
Yep.
That's the bottom line. You can't go
Yep.
anywhere else. Otherwise, you're impeding cross traffic, which makes zero sense.
That's
So
why
you
that's
have
why
no
it's
choice.
that's why it's making my head explode a little bit because like they go through
Nothing's
all
going to
this
change, in
trouble,
other words.
and it's going to be exactly like it was. But
Yeah, I mean, it
that's
really
only
is.
that's only in peak time, so it's not like the queue is always going in there. I mean, that's only when it's super busy does it get out there. So under but then again, only when it's super busy do you have congestion problems in New Orleans Square. Only when it's super busy
Right.
is that an issue. Otherwise, it's pretty easy to walk through those paths. So the only thing I could come up with is that they're trying to make it easier to navigate squarely for Fantasmic, not for viewing of Fantasmic, but to get guests between New Orleans Square and Critter Country and Galaxy's Edge during Fantasmic when they're
Right.
clogging up all that.
Yeah, that is. I think Mice Chat touched on it somewhere. I read on it, touched on it. But the thing. Listen, they control the toggles for. There's no fast pace, or sorry, fast pace. Lightning lane, there yet. There probably will be because of the value add, which we talked about forever ago. Um, but if they with that they can control how many people are getting one at that time, and they wouldn't. You know what I mean? So they can manipulate the crowds in some form if they have that. But since they don't have that, they're going to run into the same problem they would always have. But I'm wondering, you would probably know because you don't think about these things at the time. But last time Fantasmic ran, and all the times Fantasmic ran, is the pirate queue extend out into that?
Empty. Pirates is empty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's my
But
memory too. That's why I was.
It's that the problem with Fantasmic isn't what it does to the Pirates queue. It's just what it does to the whole land in general. Because
Right.
you cut the available walking space, the traveling space in between lands, effectively in half, or even more so. Maybe 60% of the available walking space is taken up by Fantasmic crowds. So you only have that
Right.
one narrow path that runs along Cafe Orleans and French Market to get to
Right.
Critter Country and Galaxy's Edge.
That's
So
what the
no,
train's for.
that's not a problem. I did though Lightning Lane. I have another thought on that before we leave that.
Yeah, definitely.
I wonder if this was the reason why they canceled Lightning Lane before, when they were talking about doing that back in what was it, 18 or 19? I don't remember. 18, I think. Um, when you when you install Lightning Lane, you effectively extend standby. The standby queues could actually grow. They could actually get bigger
Right.
if you put Lightning Lane. Although it does, you know, it does take some of the guests out of that queue, but then it also
Right.
slows it down, and it could extend the queue even worse, even more. If then again, who's really going to use Lightning Lane for?
Exactly what I was going to
I
say when you finish, because I feel I honestly will take nobody's. This is where my arrogance comes in, and one and only place I'm arrogant when it, at least try to be when it comes to this, is because it's what I do is the lightning
yeah
lane situation.
yeah
I would recommend nobody, even if it's there, to ever waste a time slot on Pirates. In fact, I can name of the 10 rides in Disneyland, I can name 8 of them I would not, or okay, 7, we'll say 7, that I would not waste. And I call it wasting a fast lightning lane on if you do it right. I suppose if you're in the middle of the day, you need to Space Mountain,
Well,
fine, I get it.
I mean,
But
you can only use them once each anyway, so it's not like you're saving it for another attraction. I mean,
well, you're saving that spot. You need it,
no, that's
right?
true. Yeah, you're right. It's a slot. Yeah.
And then the clock is moving, and I would say in the whole lightning lane strategy wise is all your, if you go to the parks in the morning, you can wipe out Disneyland. I just did it. We just did it. We wiped out all of Disney. Indiana Jones was down, and that's obviously the big monkey wrench in all of it. It was down, but we did all of the lightning lanes in Disneyland well before 11, probably 10:30.
Yeah.
And my point I was going with that is I wouldn't waste one on Pirates, because Pirates, if you're waiting for a long time, it's 20 minutes. Because it might say
Yeah.
40, it's not. It's
No.
never. And it doesn't break down, and it continues to go. It rarely breaks down, and it's usually because of something some human being did. But anyway, the lightning lane value, if we ever got into that conversation again, the value is all DCA if you're gonna park hop, because
Yeah,
you
for
can't get
sure.
on it. I went to DCA both days in a little segue that we always, how we
Yeah.
always go off track. Both Saturdays, the last 2 Saturdays, I went to DCA, and we did not get lightning lane because we were trying to just see what the park's experience would be without it. We went to DCA, and we almost came to a complete stop. It's like, man, we can't do anything over here.
Because you're hitting it in the afternoon at like the worst time too.
Yeah, we usually go over there around 2 to eat, and then
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. 2 to 3 to eat. It depends if we eat at Disneyland and we'll wait longer. But yeah, but anyway, the point is I won't go. You can't even get over there until 1. So if you want to start it over there. But anyway, the point being, I see the value in park hopping in DCA, just stacking DCA rides.
For what it's worth, I rope dropped DCA to try that. It still was no bargain trying to hit those attractions, the lightning lane attractions in the morning. I rope drop. It still was not a bargain.
You're saying that you ran
DCA
long lines.
sucks for lightning lane, man. If you
Well,
don't have
there's
it.
just it's right. There's just so fewer attractions. They have. I think DCA rides are great. They have a lot of great rides. I think.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if
the
you don't
problem-
have Genie, you're. I'm
Well,
sorry.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's what I was just saying. And like you said, I went there at lunchtime, or 1, 2 o'clock. Both times, and we got over there, and of course we did single rider Radiator Springs. But
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, man, that whole park, we're looking at, even a very good indicator is always, at least in my opinion, is Little Mermaid. So it's like, even my son's like, "What's Little Mermaid's weight?" and we look, and it's I swear to God, it's a perfect barometer for DCA. And when you look at Little Mermaid, and we saw 35 minutes, we're like, "Whoa,
What?
that is, 35 minutes on Little Mermaid, it means the park is packed and nothing else. We couldn't get on nothing."
35 minutes.
On Little Mermaid, right? That's
You
a
could
huge,
ride
I mean,
Little Mermaid
20
5 times in 35 minutes on most occasions.
Yeah, it's almost always 5, 10, even
Yeah.
15. Even 15 is pretty high.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean by it's such a good indicator. But everything else, and it was cold and cloudy, and even Grizzly's River Run was an hour plus. So anyway, yeah, the lightning lane. So the value of that, circling back to Pirates, I feel like from a marketing or from a business standpoint, they want to do it because it is value. But from a does it make any sense standpoint, it just doesn't.
Well, here's the thing about value, though. It is a good value already. $20 for on it, by itself, in and of itself, just one time $20 is a great value
It's
to shove
tremendous.
all those rides. It's a great value. It's
It's
just not
tremendous.
for us because we're doing it at the park so often. I'm not going to do it every single time. But for a
Right.
person coming in out of town, get that Genie Plus, man. Get it.
Yep.
It's all.
I
They don't
agree.
need to add value. They need to get. They need if they're trying to sell more Genie Plus. We're sidetracking again. If they want to sell more Genie Plus, they need to give it to me for my annual pass, and to you, that kind of thing. That's the only way
And even if you charge, people hate it when I say this, but in my opinion, it's just the way I feel about it. Supply and demand in general. Forget Disney, just in general. They really should raise the prices for it and make
Yeah,
it more exclusive.
I agree. People yell at me for that too. And I'm like, come
I
on,
know.
dude. Yeah.
Let me put it to you like this: if they doubled, I know people hate it when I say this, and let me also be clear: I'm very fortunate. Like I have the disposable income, I guess, if that's the right way to word
Yeah.
it. It's worth it to me because as often as I go to the parks and for what I do there, it would be worth it to me if they literally double and doubling it's only $40. So if they doubled it and then like whatever they want to do to you know prorate it or not prorate it, but like to extrapolate it for the price
Oh,
of
yeah,
an
yeah.
annual pass and add it to it. On top of that, you're getting the 15% discount and free parking and all that. I'm like, fine, I'll pay for it right now.
Yeah.
I would because of the way I use it.
Yeah.
And then that even goes for supply and demand. It's a seats on an airplane thing, right? Like if they're going to have that many people that want to get into the park, you could considerably raise the prices of the park access. And I know you price people out; it's a terrible thing to do, but that's why they have other promotions that
They've been doing
get
it for
those
years.
people in. I know they have been, and they could continue to do it just because the demand is there. The parks are telling us. Even the shareholders meeting, the
I was
parks
just
are
going to say,
exploding.
Chapek is telling us.
Right. I do want to see a couple years down the road with Genie Plus. Django, go away, dog. So anyway, back to New Orleans Square and back to Pirates of the Caribbean. Here's another fun poll we could do. Pirates of the Caribbean is how I say it. You say Pirates of the Caribbean. It's
Yes.
it's a funny thing that every time I don't know why I say it. I don't know why
I heard
word.
somebody say this, and I think this is me. I call the ride Caribbean. I call the movie Caribbean. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's true. I do for both. Pirates of the, like if I was talking about the Caribbean Ocean, I would say Caribbean. But if I was talking about Pirates of the Caribbean, it's I don't know. It is a funny thing I noticed. But anyway, yeah. So back to Pirates. Pirates. What do we know about just New Orleans Square in general? What do we know? I heard July 1st is a potential
And I'm
opening.
glad you brought that up because we still get asked. People think I can't tell you how many times I've been walking by Pirates of the Caribbean while it's been closed, and I guess I'll overhear a guest saying they closed that because of the Johnny Depp trial, or or they closed it because they're taking Johnny Depp out because of the Johnny Depp trial or something like that.
Also not true.
No, it's not. They're just okay. I'm putting this out there. They're doing nothing. They're doing nothing that faces us, the guest, inside Pirates of the Caribbean. I said that to the camera.
You know
For
what
those
they're
of you who are
doing?
listening.
They're collecting merchandise because Captain Jack Sparrow is an absolutely powerful IP. They might not do another movie,
Yeah.
but every other thing in merchandise, and from somebody who I'm ashamed to admit has consumed every second of this trial, Johnny Depp himself said all merchandise, nothing. Disney has cut zero ties with Johnny Depp whatsoever, with the exception of putting him in future projects for obvious reasons because they distance themselves from anybody that does that, which is perfectly fine. But that they're still going to collect on the IP that he created.
Yep.
And the opening of it, I don't think they're going to do any changes either. Or what about subtle changes? I mean, it is a little bit shocking how extensive it's closed, I must say.
Well, I think that's just because of well, I think it's two things. The trees take a while. They completely
guess.
dug up the queue. The queue is still being dug up. I looked over the wall the other day, and it's still dirt behind the walls. The tree thing is taking a little while. But inside the attraction itself, although I don't know how long this takes, again, it's mostly backstage stuff that they're working on. My understanding is they're installing more cameras so they can make sure that people aren't doing anything untoward. while on the attraction. So they're gonna be able to see more of us while on the ride. But other than that, I mean, that's it. But I do think that the part of it also is that they did these things at the same time. The New Orleans Square. I'm not sure which one. It's a chicken and egg kind of thing. I'm not sure what they decided to do first, but the New Orleans Square remodel and the Pirates of the Caribbean update were done at the same time on purpose, in my opinion, because you can't, you couldn't leave Pirates open while you have all those walls up in New Orleans Square because you would have no way to get guests between lands. Uh,
Right.
so
I mean,
but while you've got those walls up, it's a great time to do whatever it is that you're going to do, with Pirates of the Caribbean. So,
right, but that still had. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, all I was going to say was timing wise, they had to know. It still had to be a relatively recent and new thing because we didn't know that COVID was going to happen, and then they didn't know that, and then COVID happened. They didn't know about the tree or when did they find out that the trees were sick?
Well,
And
yeah, certainly. This is not something that they've been planning for a long time, but I would say that about a lot of the stuff that they've been doing,
sure,
in the parks.
totally, I agree.
People ask that all the time. How come they couldn't do this while the parks were closed? I'm like, well, how much do you want them to have done while the parks were closed?
Right.
Besides, everybody was furloughed anyway,
Exactly.
and that included construction crews for a lot. I mean, they had minimal construction crews. They were working. They didn't have near as much access to workers then as they do now. So. But anyway.
Yeah, we're going through it. In general, the parks in general, and I've said several times, you and I've discussed this several times over the many months, or years even. Like, it feels like Disneyland, even after Project Stardust, like, it feels like Disneyland's a little bit on the operating table because there's just non-stop construction. It's like California freeway system or just roads in general. But reaping the benefits of it, almost everything they've done, I can't think of anything specifically that's been negative. I mean, there's probably drawbacks because it's weird, like you just alluded to, the steps. You miss it, the nostalgia of the visual, and certainly from the Twain, that visual aspect of it, the steps. There's a little bit of subtle changes that are like, takes getting used to, like a fresh haircut, I guess. But the changes are big picture wise are all adding up. Like, remember how long ago was Fantasyland when they painted Snow White and they updated Peter Pan, they updated Snow White, and all those changes I think are, or even the Sleeping Beauty's castle. Remember all the
Oh God, yeah.
hoopla when they painted that. It's so I couldn't even tell you what the old one will look like right now because I'm so used to looking
It wasn't
at
as
this
pink.
one. It wasn't, and it didn't have the stars. But I like it. Like, I'm okay with it. Like, it doesn't nothing they do in that respect really. It's, I suppose you have to pick your battles, and none of those things are the battles that I have any concerns over. It's like, all right, at least they're trying. It feels like there's effort there. They're refurbishing it, so it's like, all right, that works. What else was I going to ask you about? Okay, there's Pirates. There's the attraction's going to reopen. How about the element of because Fantasmic opens in a couple days this
May
weekend.
28th, yeah, this weekend.
And the Tarzan's Treehouse, any updates or anything? And you said that you looked closely at it and the space that's opening, because it was hard for me to tell because they had so many walls up. I couldn't really see anything.
Well,
so what do you
yeah,
think
the tree will definitely open things up a little bit, but it's not wide open anymore still because like I said, the bridge creates it bisects that path in a way that cannot be overcome unless you take down the bridge.
The bridge is great.
Yeah, I'd love
They
the
better
bridge.
not touch the bridge.
Don't touch the bridge, please.
Don't touch the bridge. Talk about changing levels. I mean, that thing is great. It's fantastic.
Yeah. But still no news on what they're doing with Tarzan's Treehouse. It's almost completely gone. All that's left basically is the core, the steel core around which the tree was built, the stump that is. But everything I got some footage coming up tomorrow probably for a construction update. We'll see. You can't see anything over the walls anymore. The walls that they had up. So
yeah, I didn't notice anything. I walked by to take a peek, kind of as I was, just being a guest in the park, and I kind of looked, and I'm like, all right, I can't make anything out of anything. I have no idea. They need to remove walls to actually get the general spatial difference. Across the park on the other side, before we move on, just going to ask you if any updates or anything you've heard about Finding Nemo. And the lagoon and all of those fun things going on.
Well, I mean, they got water in there, which means they're done with whatever it is that they were doing in the bay. I don't know what else they're doing, but I can say this: the park's calendar, the attraction calendar, still shows it is closed into July, and it kind of makes you wonder.
What else is going on?
Well, yeah, what's left? If they got another more than a month to go, what are they going to do for a month? I don't understand it. But I look at that calendar every day, and it still shows Treehouse and Finding Nemo as closed into July.
It's interesting. It's interesting because there's nothing above ground, and there's water in there, right?
Yeah.
So.
So what are they doing?
I don't know. That's interesting. I didn't look at that. I didn't consider it. That's what you're here for. That you're the expert on that stuff. I bring literally. I have absolutely no responsibility here whatsoever. I go to Disneyland and talk to you about it. All right. Well, that's fantastic. That's good stuff. So we'll be back next week. It's a holiday weekend. I'm sure we'll be back. I guess we'll discuss that if we're here next week. But I'm sure there's going to be more fun news things to catch up on. And, we'll dive into it when we do. Yep. But for now, we will do this week in Disney history. And short and sweet and to the point. And what's funny, I noticed there's a lot of topical things in a roundabout way of what's going on in the park and in the world in this week in Disney history, because the universe just does funny things. Finding Nemo premiered this week in 2003. The film made a huge splash. See what I did there?
Yes.
At the box office and went on to becoming the highest grossing animated film and won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature Film. Pixar's Andrew Stanton told us how he came up with the concept. If I'm truly tracing the earliest inspiration I had for Nemo, it would be going to the dentist when I was a little boy. He had a fish tank in the wall, and I would stare forever at the fish, wondering what they must think of humans looking at each other's teeth. That's cool. Pretty funny. Yeah, that was pretty funny. This week in 2011, it's an ugly year to say, Pirates of the Caribbean, or Pirates of the Caribbean, if you wish, on Stranger Tides open this week. Notable because the film premiere was at Disneyland on May 7th.
Yeah.
Also notable, I worked on that film.
Oh, did you?
No, yes, but I was a day player, so no big deal. I'm not in the credits. I'm in credits of many films, but not that one. I was a day player, so most of it was shot in Hawaii and the UK. It came back. There were storms in Hawaii, so there's a location called I can't remember now. White Cap Bay, I think. So anyway, there was a chunk that they had to shoot when I was working at Universal. I worked for NBC Universal, and on the back lot there is where they filmed a lot of these. So they had like miniatures of all this stuff. They shot the scenes and everything, and then we did some in Long Beach. I was a day player. I only worked 4 days on the film, but I worked on the film. And I might add, the entire cast was professional, punctual, and made those long, wonderful days a wonderful, wonderful experience that I will cherish. The Indian War canoes were renamed Davy Crockett's Explorer's Canoe and opened in Bear Country this week in 1971. Can't imagine any problems with the Indian War canoes.
No, that's fine. It's fine.
Since 1956, they had been known as that in Frontierland. The loading dock had been moved several times as progress changed around the layout for Rivers of America. The only Disneyland attraction where guests had to work their paddle, or have to work because we still have them. Yep. Their paddling is the only means of locomotion of the 35-foot-long canoes as they are circling Tom Sawyer's Island. No tracks. When was the last time you were on those?
Pre-COVID. So I'm going to say sometime in 19. But I don't know for sure. I can't remember.
This would make my list for when we do the top 5. I also try to think of things and throw them in the bucket. The top 5 or the 5 attractions we've been on the least. The least. This would be one of mine, and not for no. I don't know why. I've done it a few times this year actually. I don't know. It's just work, I guess. I don't know. It feels. I don't know. It was
I
fun when I did it. I must say.
Yeah, no, I enjoy them. I can't. That's an interesting. I've never really thought
I have never
about
thought about. I
that.
couldn't tell you my other five, but it popped in my head because
It would probably be on
wanted to
the
ask
list,
you.
though. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you when you had done it, and that reminded me of that top
Yeah.
five. I would also argue that you have to do work on Buzz Lightyear, Astro Blaster,
Yes.
Midway Mania,
Yeah.
Web Slingers.
No, I'm tired at Midway Mania, man. Are you kidding?
Smugglers Run. Oh, me too. You have to get in conditioning for that for
Yeah.
sure. I wear myself out. It's wrist. It's wrist. It's not arm. It's wrist.
Yep.
It's wrist. I tell myself that constantly. That's the only ride in Disneyland that angers me. Former astronaut Buzz Aldrin joined several other space explorers for the dedication ceremony of, once again, topical, New Tomorrowland, which opened after extensive remodeling this weekend, 1998. Freshly painted in bronzes and golds, the new Tomorrowland opened with a mix of classic Tomorrowland attractions and a few new ones too. Rocket Rods, the all-new high-speed drag racing attraction, was placed on the People Mover track. It marked the most anticipated new addition. Imagine that.
I know.
The 5-passenger modernistic vehicles whisked guests at high speed, the fastest ride at Disneyland, on nearly a mile of roadway. It finally closed in 2000, so it lasted a hot minute. Its opening coincided with the Red Rockets Pizza Port, which served pizzas and pastas, which is now, I don't even know what they call it.
Alien Pizza Planet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Planet. The American Space Experience exhibit opens. The Spirit of Refreshment beverage stand opens. The Astro Orbiter opens. The 3D film Honey, I Shrunk the Audience debuted at Disneyland because it had already been at Walt Disney World. The landscape of the land was also changed with Agri-Future, which supposes that in the future ornamental landscaping will be replaced with fruits and vegetables. The Light Magic Streetacular Parade debuted this week in 1997, featuring fiber optic effects, music, pixies, and Disney characters. Light Magic replaced Disney's topical Main Street Electrical Parade as an all-new Streetacular. The show encouraged guests to dream and to believe that those dreams can come true. With 4 moving floats, each 80 feet long, and the parade made 2 stops, one in front of It's a Small World and another on Main Street. It only ran for 3 months.
Yeah, I've heard horror stories about that parade. I never saw it though.
I didn't see it either. I don't remember. I mean, if I did, actually, no, I didn't. That was my 10, 15-year... I didn't step foot into Disneyland. The last one is a Disney legend passed away. 1995 Disney legend Thurl Ravenscroft dies of cancer at 91, and he's a big one for lots of fun stuff. Thurl Ravenscroft's name may not be familiar to Disney fans, but his voice is probably best known as the voice of Kellogg's Tony the Tiger, a character he played from 1952 all the way to 2005. But he was a favorite among Disney vocal performers. His voice had been featured in Disneyland attractions such as the Country Bear Jamboree, It's a Small World, Pirates of the Caribbean, Splash Mountain, the Enchanted Tiki Room. He voices Fritz in the German audio animatronic parrot. And he's also heard and seen in the Haunted Mansion.
Yes.
Guests are often mistaking the mustachioed face of the broken off bust in the graveyard scene for that of Walt Disney. But that is actually Thurl Ravenscroft. Thurl also performed on many classic Disney films such as Lady and the Tramp, Alice in Wonderland, Cinderella, 101 Dalmatians, The Sword and the Stone, Mary Poppins, The Jungle Book, Pete's Dragon, and The Fox and the Hound, as well as many TV shows such as Zorro the Brave Little Toaster and several Disneyland records. His voice can be heard in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, because he's the one who sings "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch," and everybody knows that song, so there's his voice right there. Thurl passed away May 22nd, 2005. Kellogg's, which is cool, ran an ad commemorating Thurl Ravenscroft. The headline read, "Behind every great character is an even greater man." that's a super cool thing.
Yeah.
That was thorough. How long I suppose like the Haunted Mansion, the head. How many years ago was it that you found out it wasn't Walt? Because
I never thought it was Walt.
I thought it was
No.
Walt. I don't know what came first, but I could see how people would think that
Sure.
going through there that don't know.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. That was this week in Disney history. So that leads us to mailbag.
All right.
You have some questions, sir. We
Okay.
do. Thank you everybody who sent and submitted the questions. Please continue to do so because I jot them all down and keep them and go through them, and virtually all of them get on with the exception of the lewd ones and the ones that were asked like verbatim to something we've already covered. But this week, so Cosmic Rewind, this comes from Orange Grove 55. Cosmic Rewind looks like a huge hit for Walt Disney World. Appears to be quality addition to the park. This was greenlit when Chapek was running the parks, opened when he was CEO. How come fans are not giving him any credit for this?
That's a very good question. We could go on about what those reasons might be, and we could talk about not only Chapek getting credit or Tomorrow getting blame for various things, but the fact of it is people hate Chapek. That's why. He's not. He doesn't come off as anybody who resonates the Disney thing, whatever it is you want to call it. As far as creativity or that kind of thing. He looks like a supervillain, and I think that they just. It's a great question in that sense, and I think that he should get some credit for it, and he should also not get all the blame for everything that's going on. It's such a fascinating question. The buck stops with Chapek, but it did. What's that?
Is it? I
think so because look. Did we ever say anything like that about Iger? Did Iger get any of the blame for Galaxy's Edge?
No, I'm not talking about the blame side of things. I'm thinking of the credit side of things. Like when was the attraction announced? So do you think that they announced Cosmic Rewind and built it and had it in there within the last 2 years? No way.
No, but he was running parks. Chapek was running parks.
Well, there's your answer. He also opened Shanghai when he was running parks, and that goes on Iger's watch because Iger's the CEO, and it goes on his legacy. That's the way that works. I don't know why that's weird.
Okay, wait. So that's exactly the point he's trying to make, right? Is that?
Yeah. Well,
to me, if Chapek if he's running parks while they do a good thing, it goes to Iger. Now that Chapek's president, No, because you said it was on Iger's watch.
It was.
When we're talking about Shanghai and Cosmic Rewind.
Right, but I'm saying what I'm saying is, so for the park example, all on Iger's watch was I want to do a park, I want to put a park in, and it was completed all under Iger's watch. But Chapek was running parks. So Chapek, it was a huge reason that happened. But the president of the company was Iger. That just like the president of the country, like everything falls under your watch. That's just the way it works.
Sure.
As far as Cosmic Rewind goes, Chapek just took over 2 years ago, and Cosmic Rewind was announced at D23 6 years ago.
Yeah,
and then
it's been a while.
So Iger gets. I mean, it was greenlit on Iger's watch, not Chapek's watch. At least in my understanding, I guess. And then, so he had it happen. He executed on it because when the regimes take over and all. So I'm not saying that Chapek doesn't deserve credit because he absolutely does. He executed on it certainly, but all the green lighting and the names and the D23 announcements came from Tomorrow as Iger as president. So then now Chapek opened it, he finished it, he made sure that it happened, but the ball was already rolling. So the point is a larger point, and I agree with what you said. He's not Bob Iger, so Chapek he gets the heat for not execute, or he gets the heat because he's not Bob Iger, point blank range. He's not Bob Iger, so he has to overcome that obstacle. In addition to that, he's made missteps, and it just so happens that those missteps are the same exact kind of missteps that Iger is masterful at handling. So it's presumed that they would not have happened on Iger's watch, kind of a thing. So there's all of that.
Okay, final thought on that though. Reverse that to Galaxy's Edge. Who got credit, if you want to use that term instead of blame? Who got credit for Galaxy's Edge?
Iger, 100% Iger.
And by credit, I mean blame.
Well, I don't know who got blamed, but it was on Iger's watch.
Chapek did. They 100%.
It's on, I don't agree with. I don't agree with that. I mean, maybe he did.
That's what happened.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm saying it doesn't matter historically. Fine, we're in the moment, I guess. But historically speaking, Galaxy's Edge, good, bad, or indifferent, is on Iger. It's on Iger's watch. It's on Iger's regime, on his tenure.
The poor reception of Galaxy's Edge, the poor follow through, the lack of doing all the things that they promised us, were blamed on Chapek because everybody said he cut all the costs, he cut all the corners, he trimmed everything. They blamed it on Chapek.
How does that make sense when Iger was in command? Chapek can't cut.
That's right. Okay.
I just don't. I mean, I haven't read that.
That's the question that he's asking, but in a reverse form and talking about why. Okay, so if you're going to blame Chapek for this, then how about we give him credit for the things that happened as a president?
So, as a general statement, I do agree with that. Chapek has. Listen, Chapek's done a fantastic job in a lot of ways, and that has to do with the dollar. I mean, he just has. Now, that's going to, we've talked about this too, that's going to run out because Genie Plus, the attrition will hit, and we're going to see how many people are buying Genie Plus in 2 years or whatever. But anyway.
They're still going to buy, but the year-over-years aren't going to look as sexy as they do today.
Well, I don't know if they're still going to buy it. I think once people get over the shiny new toy and the novelty of it, and they're going to say, I don't know that I need it or I want it. Like, I don't know. Well, you buy the spikes, the numbers in purchasing it are not going to get better. They have no way to go but down. More people are not going to buy it.
If they sell them to APs.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they just have to move the cheese. They got to keep figuring out a way to do it. That is interesting, but I do the point is certainly that Iger, everything he did was the Midas touch, and Chapek just can't get out from under the groundswell. Everybody hates him.
Everything.
Right. I know for sure. I definitely do agree with that.
I'm not even saying that's true. I'm just saying that's how it's perceived.
Yeah, I was only speaking specifically to the Cosmic Rewind and that whole situation. It's like, well, he kind of did the last little bit, but he did it, and he did it successfully, and that is something. Like, that is definitely it's a good thing. So anyway, interesting. Thank you for the question. Good question. Obviously a good question. Feels like we could have did a show on it. If you were at the parks with someone like me who has never seen World of Color or Fantasmic, what would you do in terms of viewing areas, timing, etc.? This comes from the Girly Nerd.
Both of those are virtual queues, so you don't really get to pick your viewing area. You go where they send you, and then they've also, because it's virtual queue, you don't have to wait around. There's no timing at issue other than be on your phone at noon when the virtual queues lottery starts. So be on your phone, be ready, have your groups together and everything by noon, and just be ready to hit the button. But there's really not a lot you can do in terms of preparing otherwise. There are standby for both. World of Color has standby. Basically, your back's against the Little Mermaid. Not a very good seat, and I would prepare to wait a solid hour plus for that if you want to try to get one of those poor spots. I think they also do standby on the bridge, on the Paradise Pier or Pixar Pier bridge. But there's only there's very few seats there. I think there's standby going to be. There was standby before for Fantasmic. I assume there will be. But this is going to be on the wings, on the left and the right sides. All the VQ seatings will be down the middle. But again, be prepared to wait. I mean, even more than an hour for those seats.
Yeah, there's not much to add to that now that they've gone to virtual queue. That's kind of the game you have to play, and then just from very far away, just see what you can see, which is not very good because the virtual queues fill up so much of all.
Well, you
that
can't even
space.
stand and watch those unless you're in the standby areas because they'll just shoo you on. Hey, keep moving.
Yeah, exactly like the parade. Yeah, so once they went virtual queue, I think it's, I don't know. How do you feel about that? I think I like it actually.
No, look,
I'm not
as much as I don't like virtual queue, the blanket brigade in New Orleans Square was the worst freaking thing. I hated how early people started putting down those damn blankets on the rivers of America at like 4 in the afternoon, and just like, it just ruined everything.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way when it comes to virtual queue, where they have the technology to do it and it makes sense. And from a business standpoint, because people are out moving around, they're not camped, they're spending money theoretically, they're eating, they're happy. They're happy because they don't have to stress and hold spots and do all of that. They can go buy churros and things. So from the business standpoint, it makes sense. It's good business, and I like exactly what you just said, the fact that it's kind of a little bit of a lottery. You try to get it. And I mean, I do understand the element of you're only going to the parks once a year and you absolutely want to see the show and you don't get in, and that's a bummer. So that goes back to they should just add a option like they do with Lightning Lane, or not Light, whatever they call the I don't know what they call
individual Lightning
individual Lightning for Rise of the Resistance.
So they would sell those, Ron. They would sell so many individual Lightning Lanes for Fantasmic. They would sell all of them.
And that's why and my brain goes business side 100% of the time. It's like, okay, why don't they crank up the price and do just that? But yeah, I'm glad that they don't. I like the virtual queue lottery. It seems it's fair. It's as fair as you can get, I suppose.
As fair as it gets, yeah. You can't do much better.
This is a good question, and I have lots of thoughts on this, and I know you do because you were at Star Wars Night. This comes from Disney Steve. After Star Wars Night, do you think the characters and experiences we saw, like Ewoks, Jawas, and Ahsoka, could appear in the park down the line on just any regular day?
Well, like you, I could go on and on about this, but I've got 2 words that'll basically summarize my feelings. That is, they better. Because I don't want to live in a world where we can't see those characters in Galaxy's Edge. I just don't. I don't want to. I mean, I'll go, but I'm not going to be happy until they do. I won't not be happy until I can see an Ewok or a Jawa or Darth Vader. I'm not going to be happy until that's the thing.
Yeah, it's so funny that you said 2 words right out of the gates. I wrote, my first words are, yes, I'm going to err on the side of, quote, they have to. So I have 3 words. They have to. And very funny. So I like it when we're in lockstep, right, on stuff like that. I'll say this about the characters. So my last couple of weekends there, because I had probably a 3-week hiatus. I was getting, tattoos. And I did go, and I did notice there are characters galore coming into the parks. They're everywhere. I saw people that I haven't seen in forever. Geppetto, Pinocchio. There's the Encanto, the Raya, and the Last Dragon. Avengers Campus is loaded with characters. I saw characters everywhere. And that was definitely, like I was saying earlier, I don't know if we're on air or off air, but I was mentioning, like, it still continues to feel like, man, they've gone even farther back to, normal. I don't want to say normal, but because we are back, but essentially I still continue to notice things like, okay, that's more energy. That's more than what we had. And I feel like that is a sign. I don't think things are by accident. So I feel like that's an indication and that's a sign. So, or otherwise, what are they going to say? The only place you can't see characters is Galaxy's Edge, right? That's kind of what it's boiled down. That's kind of what it's boiled down to. That's what it's boiled down to. Is there's characters throughout the entire park. So I think they have to, and I think they know they have to. And how about this? If you saw them I saw Captain Phasma and stuff over, and Stormtroopers over Tomorrowland. But if you saw them at Star Wars Night, that means they have the costumes already. They can do it. So what are they going to do? Put them in a closet? No, I really think they're going to really start adding characters to Galaxy's Edge because they have to, and because what was your 2 words?
They better.
They better. I put they have to. You put they better. I love it. So we shall see. Yep. Thank you for the questions. And 5 things Disneyland This is going to be interesting. Thank you for the question. This comes from Marshall at Saint Laurent Darche. Marshall had an excellent question.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Top 5 ride scenes at Disneyland. Top 5, favorite 5. We always mix up that first 5, but top 5 ride scenes at Disneyland. And this was fun to think about, actually, because I never really thought about it in those terms. So, Mr. Erickson, your number 5.
Well, first, I'm going to predict that this is going to be the first time where we don't share any. I have a feeling we're both going to have 5 different answers to this.
Well, I agree. I think one is we're going to share, and I agree because you definitely don't have 3 of mine. I guarantee.
All right. I'm gonna go light here at the first. I really enjoy, one of my favorite scenes is the first meeting of Harold on the Tomorrowland side, where you're coming around, you're making that left, and then you make that hard right. You drop down hard right in front of Harold, and he's growling at you. I've been on that ride 100 times since they redid it, and I still get kind of chills and fear and all that stuff from that maneuver. I love the new Harold. I love how that scene is set up, and I love especially the way that they, like I said, how they have him positioned next to that hard right on the Matterhorn.
Good call. I think this is also another one of those there's like no wrong answers kind of a thing, because I can't think of a place on a ride where I'm like, I hate that part of it. I hate it. So yeah, that's cool. I agree. I like the upgrade that they did to the Matterhorn. Like Harold is super, super cool. But yeah, a good call. My number 5 is going to tick you off. My number 5 is the finale in Soarin', California, or Soarin' the World. Because I think it's so cool to have that feeling of just flying into Disneyland. I just love that moment. It's just so cool. Like you're seeing Disneyland.
Oh my God.
You wouldn't want to soar into Disneyland?
No.
It's so cool. It's Disneyland at night with fire. You're soaring? Yes.
No, you're not.
Well, you're not seeing a Yeti, David.
Well, yeah,
it's not a Yeti. No,
he's right there.
Disneyland's right there, and I'm above it. And when you're afraid of heights, it feels you're holding on. It's just cool. I just like that touch. I like the touch of just soaring right into Disneyland where we're at. It's cool. And maybe, to be fair, I'm usually pretty buzzed at that time of day at DCA.
Okay. Well, my number 4, this is kind of a deep cut, but for whatever reason, I really enjoy it. At the end of Splash Mountain, in the dark ride portion of Splash Mountain, or near the end, when you're just about to go up the left hill, you've got the Mama Rabbit singing that song, saying, what will Brer Rabbit do? And she's singing it to her kids, and you hear it on your right, and the way that they have it synced up, and then you turn to your left, and she sings the next verse. It's one of the most convincing sort of transitions between. It's one scene, but split in 2. Yeah. And I don't know why that impresses me, but every time I go through that, I'm just like, man, that's cool the way they did that. The song is perfectly synchronized to our guest experience.
Yeah, that's cool. I know I like Splash Mountain. There's many areas in there I like. I couldn't pick one, actually. When I was thinking of, when I had Splash Mountain going through my mind, I'm like, what spot do I like? I do. It's a fun ride. I don't know. I just love it. Good call.
Okay.
My number 4, also controversial. The monorail, yes, that counts. And that spot when you get that visual aesthetic going over Tomorrowland, where you see the lagoon, you see the Matterhorn, just that, and you see the people out there. It is absolutely art at its finest, all by design. It's just so gorgeous. And in fact, I was on Autopia. This is different, but I was on Autopia this weekend. And you could literally reach up and touch the monorail. And I wish I had my camera out for this moment. But as Autopia was going, the monorail came, and it was 2 feet of. I mean, I couldn't reach it because I could only reach the bottom. But the monorail was like right there. It would have been one of the most. Now I will constantly go to Autopia and try to get that moment again to have that perfect shot of within a couple inches of me. But anyway, that view of the monorail that I went over when it's going over, and you can see the lagoon and you can see the Matterhorn, like you just have that whole view. It's so awesome. I just love it.
I would argue it's at least as enjoyable to watch the monorail make that turn from the ground at the Nemo Lagoon. I love getting that shot, that view from the lagoon, looking at the monorail, doing that same
Yeah, it's
exact
cool.
spot.
Yeah.
Okay, my number three. Where are we? Okay, the opening drift. Well, it's not a drift, not in the terms that we know it today, but the opening scene of Pirates when you're going through the bayou and it's dark and you got the fireflies and you got the blue bayou on your right.
Yep.
It's one of the most like chill settings. It's perfect for me in terms of setting the scene and kind of showcasing Disney's abilities as their ability to put on a show for you, because the way it's lit, it's the way they do some of the special effects, the sound, plus like I said, the blue bayou on the right. I love that first scene. That's the whole show for me. Sometimes it's just going through that first part of Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes, it sets the stage well, and more on that later. My number three, also controversial because it's not really fitting into the whole scope of the question, but it is in my mind because Mark Twain view over New Orleans Square in the Haunted Mansion.
Oh yeah.
That turn of the Twain is, I mean, I've said this several times before, but my favorite visual of the entire park in any place ever, no matter what the location is, mostly because of the people. The view is great. You see the trees, you see New Orleans Square, you're coming, everybody's looking up at you. You see nothing but cameras, and also that inherent Disney magic where people can't help but wave.
Yeah.
So people are waving at you.
You almost don't want to, but you do it anyway.
Yes, exactly. I'm almost like, okay, like I'm always awkward about that kind of, like I'm a social butterfly. I'll talk to anybody and we'll have a full conversation and it doesn't bother me at all. But when I get that wave or a character looking at me in the eyes, I'm like, weirded out a little bit. So anyway, the waving at the people and just looking at the whole turn, just that whole, all of the Twain, but all of that turn until you start to get over to even a Hungry Bear. It's just, I just love it. Do you see the canoes below you? I think it's fantastic. And that is, once again, art. I mean, that was a beautiful artistic creation that they gave us from both directions. To your point earlier, both directions is perfect.
Yeah. Okay, my number two is the on Rise of the Resistance. The scene where you're traveling, you got on your right are the displays that look out into space, and you got the laser cannons on your left, and they're firing their laser cannons, the ion cannon, out into space. It is one of the most convincing, dramatic, theatrical, scenes that they could have put together, on that attraction. I love how real in that moment space looks and feels. When in that moment, and it's, for me, I mentioned this in another podcast, that I use that as a benchmark, as a template. Look what they could do if you put a roller coaster, somewhere underneath there, like on Space Mountain kind of thing. I mean, it is beautiful. That scene is beautiful for me.
Oh, it's spectacular. I agree. Imagine again the Hyperspace Mountain, the new version of that. How great would that be? You see what that screen looks like, knowing full well it's digital, and intellectually we're aware of the fact that that's not space, it's digital. Having anything like that incorporated into Space Mountain, because even Space Mountain as Hyperspace Mountain, it's fun. It's cool. That TIE fighter moment that you get on there is pretty cool.
But you can barely see the TIE fighter in that moment.
Well, I just think I like it though. I mean, I'm suspending disbelief and having fun with it, and I like it. I agree with you. My number two, also Rise of the Resistance. This is the one I knew that I figured, because it's the greatest attraction ever made. So if you feel like there's going to be some scenes in there, I mean, I say this is the greatest attraction because it's just cutting edge. It's just like we've never seen anything like it. I think so. You picked a great spot on it. I didn't know what to pick because, to be honest with you, I ended up going because the Stormtroopers is spectacular. That moment is just jaw dropping. Yeah. It literally is.
Oh God, and
then,
right. I should have thought.
I mean, it's so jaw dropping.
Yeah.
Like as many times as you've seen it, just that room is so well done. And you got the live action cast members who are so
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
Like you're like, oh my gosh, so you're going through it and you're seeing it. It's really spectacular and jaw dropping. And of course, there's the lightsaber effect from the top
Yeah, that's
that
cool.
I still can't differentiate from being real to not being real, other than a smelling of the steel burning. Like it is incredible.
Yeah.
And then the scene that you pointed to, not to mention the fact that seeing AT-AT walkers.
Yeah, the AT-ATs. Yeah.
I call them AT-AT walkers because I'm old, but apparently the kids nowadays call them AT-AT walkers.
Well, that's what they are.
That's what they are. But when we were kids growing up, didn't we call them AT-AT walkers?
We call them AT-ATs, but the newer generation says, okay, well, if those are AT-ATs, then what do you call the ATST?
Yeah, exactly. That's what my son does all the time. And I'm like, they're AT-AT boy. I'm a dad. I'm always right. So anyway, yeah. So that attraction is spectacular, and I agree with you. You can't pick a bad spot except for with that part that falls on Kylo at the end.
Yeah,
the ride is perfect.
Yeah,
ride is perfect throughout. That pot is so janky. It is so janky. It's like
really
this ride is
janky.
perfect, and you have this like fake thing. You see Kylo standing there still. Like, what are you doing? You couldn't do better than that.
You can almost sense. You can sense the thing just resetting. You can almost visualize it just doing this all day, and you're like, come on.
Well, that was at the end of their. I felt like that of the whole attraction, as long as it took. That was like at the end of their shift. They're like, yeah, let's just close enough.
Good.
Let's go. Let's go. Call it a day.
Okay, are we on my one then?
You're on number one, sir.
London. Peter Pan. The scene over London on Peter Pan and the scene over Skull Rock. I mean, that's the price of admission for me. It's worth 45 minutes. It's worth every minute standing in that queue just for those 15 seconds or 30 seconds that you get over London and over Skull Rock. And that is a 60-year-old attraction. And it's still my favorite and best scene in the park.
That was my number 6. It didn't make the cut.
Oh.
But I agree. That scene jumped out to when the question was posed.
Yeah.
Ride scenes. Believe it or not, that was like one of the very, very first one that popped in my head because that is truly a magnificent scene. My number one, you stole my thunder a little bit. Pirates of the Caribbean, and the thing is, I said Caribbean.
I know.
I don't know how I say it anymore. But Pirates of the Caribbean, like, you stole my thunder a little bit when you were talking about. You said something about the best opening or whatever, and
Yeah.
what I intended to say was it's storytelling. It's a master class in storytelling.
Yeah.
That attraction from start to finish, and it even has a couple thrill moments. I absolutely think that ride is magnificent. And the more we keep drilling down in all these top fives, and it keeps coming up, I'm like, man, that ride really is epic. It really is great.
Pirates
And
is goat.
it's so goat. And I don't know what I would pick for the scene. I think the opening, you picked a good spot because the reason I say that is because the whole thing is such a fantastic story tied together. But what scene I did pick, because it just goes back to my childhood, of the grand stage, that the cannon firing between the two ships.
Yeah.
As a kid, I remember, and then I came back, like I said, 15 years later, and I'm like, okay, it's not quite as big as my kid's memory had it. But I just remember that as a kid, that is the greatest thing I'd ever seen. And now, in the last couple of months, they've changed it where you get wet now from the cannon.
More so than you ever did before, yeah.
More so. You maybe felt a drop before. Now you conceivably could get a pretty good sized drop hit you, or you could feel it. And to me, that little touch was so great. It's so great. I just love that scene. And the only thing I don't like about the scene is if you look up, it's not blocked out well enough where you could see like you could see things up there. That ticks me off because I don't. If they fix that somehow, you don't know that you're not in the middle of an ocean between two ships firing each other. It's really cool.
It is really cool. Very convincing.
That's our 5 things Disneyland.
All right.
Mr. Erickson, anything you want to do to put a cap and put a button on this fine show today?
Well, I guess with regard to New Orleans Square, I'm good. It's fine. Whatever. It is what it is. Don't stress out too much about Pirates of the Caribbean. No guest facing changes there. Caribbean faith.
I don't know.
But yeah, it's fine. It's good. New Orleans Square is still going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome, and I really look forward to. We didn't get into it, but in the back by the shops and everything, and even Blue Bayou, like I don't know, I don't expect much change at all. Hardly noticeable, but it'd be interesting to see what it is.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't know what we're going to talk about next week, but we're going to find
no
some
idea.
fun stuff. Maybe Lagoon. Maybe we can dive into the Lagoon because we found some more issues. Or maybe we're going to hear something about the treehouse, which I don't expect forever. But
Nope.
whatever it is, whatever we come up with, it will be fun. And until then,
Fresh baked.
nailed it!
Yes.